what I'm going to talk about today is why, as somebody who spends a lot of time on Capitol Hill, making the case for the importance of investments in science, why we need more tools to do a better job in that. And that's what many of the folks I know, Julia and others, folks like Paul Romer, have helped us to do. So you see the title of my talk, it's demonstrating the value of investments in science, but why anecdotes alone are not enough. So I'll explain that here as we go. Let me just, I've only got a few minutes here, so we're going to resume through. I want to take you back just a couple of weeks ago to the Senate floor when Rand Paul took to the Senate floor and was critical of funding. This was during the debate on the Endless Frontiers Act, which proposes significant new investments in the National Science Foundation. And Rand Paul took to the floor and was critical and started talking about cocaine and risky sex habits of quail research and lizards on treadmills, and criticized NSF for funding a $1.5 million study on how to improve the taste of tomatoes, and also one on taking selfies and how that makes you happy. This is not a new technique used by those who want to be critical of research. And we've seen it before. Senator Coburn from Oklahoma used to have his waste books. Senator Proxmire was known for his Golden Fleece Award. And more recently, others like Senator Ernst from Iowa have created their own awards to kind of suggest that investments in public investments and government investments in research are not valuable and a waste of taxpayer dollars. So as an advocate for science and representing major research universities, one of the challenges is how do we demonstrate the value of the investments that the federal government makes? And we know, going back to the vision that Vannevar Bush laid out over 75 years ago, that there was a view coming out of World War II that science could not only help us with national issues like national defense, or major global issues or national issues like defense, but that it could add to our health, prosperity, and well-being. But it's still making that case that Vannevar Bush laid out and suggested that the National Science Foundation play a critical role in helping to advance is not an easy one. So what do we do? Well, as an advocate, I can tell you, we try and tell better stories than the other side. And we've gotten even better at that. And I want to give some credit here to Jim Cooper, who back in about 2010 came to the AAU, my association, and the AAAS, and said, you know, we can do better, and we need to fight against these attacks on science, like those coming from Senator Proxmire and others who are making these. And he, in his mind, said we should create an award that recognizes science that you could have made fun of, sounded funny, sounded like a waste, and thus was born the Golden Goose Award. And that award, which we've been very active in, we've recognized Charles Towns. Charles Towns, of course, won the Nobel Prize in 1964 for inventing the maser, which led to the laser. By the way, it was dubbed the solution in search of a problem. Nobody knew what to do with it. And Charles Towns, I will remember vividly him coming at 97 years old, accepting that award and telling the story of how his department chair had taken him to task for wasting the department's money on this research. Other things, green fluorescent proteins, diabetes drugs developed with the saliva, from the saliva of the Gila monsters. There are a number of stories, you could certainly make fun of them, that they have led to groundbreaking research. We know other stories that we tell. Let's face it, NSF often tells the story of Google and Larry Page and Sergey Brin. And we tell it at AAU in this graphic, and we try and show that for a small investment, a $4.5 million grant that went to Stanford in digital libraries, we got Google. And look at how that's changed our lives and the employment, the benefits from that. But there's still something lacking. And so we've also tried to utilize what we know from economics and economic analyses to help advance our cause. And we have made progress. And I like to go back to another NSF project back in 1968 that was launched in part because there had been a DoD study done called Project Hindsight, and it suggested that basic research wasn't important to most defense research advances at that time. NSF's response was to contract another report, The report is often referred to as the NSF Traces report. And what it did was it looked at things like the birth control pill. It looked at the video camera, and suggested what was the foundational basic research that was necessary to develop those things that everybody enjoyed. And it was a seminal study. And I think a lot of people don't remember, but it was trying to trace things backwards. So that was a start of kind of telling better, how do we tell better stories and then link it to real evidence, data, and substance. Of course, we know, and you're going to hear from Paul Romer here in a second, but Bob Solo and Paul have really helped to not only add to our understanding of the economic value of investments in R&D, but also the role that human capital plays in advancing its role. Edwin Mansfield, of course, did seminal studies in the 90s on return on investment, looking at academic research, finding that the rate of return on investment was between 28 and 40%. And then I go back, by the way, the PI on that Traces study, his name was Francis Nairn. Nairn went on and he got into bibliometrics, and he started his own company, CHI, and they did some very interesting work. One was work that showed that privately funded private patents more often, over 70% of the time, cited publicly funded research. And then he also developed, by the way, a stock market model, which he used for his own employees, and was very proud that they did really well. It was based upon linking the patent portfolios of companies back to the quality of the science it was based upon. So there's been good work. I want to give a shout out to the work that Julia did. And she said, I've been involved. It really started with Star Metrics. And I got hooked up with Julia when I was concerned about, under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, I was getting a lot of complaints from our researchers that they got funding from that. This is the stimulus bill that came in 2009. They got funding from it, but they had to report on the number of jobs created to the OMB. But by the way, the OMB changed the rules every couple of weeks as to what you had to report. And the data they got from that never really worked out very well and wasn't very effective. But I was told that there was a woman at NSF, Julia Lane, who had this idea of using administrative data through our universities, taking the people piece out of this. And that was my introduction to what wasn't called Star Metrics even at that point, but an idea. But I will say, I became sold on the notion that if you can collect good data and you can link inputs to outputs, we can do a much better job as advocates on what we do. So I want to say, and I'm going to come back to that in a second, to Star Metrics, but I also want to mention Jack Marburger, who really did make a case in 2005 that we could do better. We could develop better metrics, better data sets to become better advocates for science. And he was really the one who pushed the whole notion of a program of science policy. And the reason that many people have been funded, many people who are listening in today, to do work in this area. And I think he was absolutely right. And we need to continue to promote what he suggested was needed. And I just want to say, building on the Star Metrics, we now have the work that Jason Owen Smith leads and others like Bruce Weinberg and Julia have been involved in at the Institute for Research on Innovation and Science, which is really taking Star Metrics, what became U-Metrics, to the next level of applying and using administrative data to understand and improve what we can say about the value of investments in public investments in higher education research and basic science. So a few final things, and I'm going to wrap up here. Why do we need a framework? Why do we need to focus on this? There are important questions that people like me as advocates would love to have better answers for. My boss used to ask me, for every dollar we invest in research, Toby, what do we get out? I'd say, I'm never going to be able to answer that, but I think we can do better. So what's the economic return on investments we make, the government makes in science? What are the social returns? But equally as important, and again, I will mention Paul's work, and the qualitative benefits, the things that are really hard to measure, but those people. And there was a paper that, again, some of you were involved in called Wrapping It Up in a Person. The human capital piece is really important. How do we measure and tell that story? In fact, at our universities, the people we produce are really the value. They go on to start companies, they How many more Googles are there that we don't record and we can't document because we don't have that connection to the human capital and the people we produce? International comparisons. We need good data to make good international comparisons. We also want to look at, a big issue we always want to look at is job creation. How many jobs result, not only from what results from science, but jobs, and this is where I think Iris is doing a very good job. How many jobs, like I was saying, come from just the investment itself, and jobs that we often don't think of in contractors outside of the university, not just the students and the scholars who are doing the research directly. Scientific workforce. How important is foreign talent? How important is domestic talent? We don't have answers to those questions. I think with better data, we can get closer. And diversity, which is a big topic now. And then the last thing on just questions, how much impact does making science open really have? And we don't know that quite, we don't know the answer. There's a lot of assertions that open science is important. We just don't know from good data. So why is a framework needed? We need common data tools, definitions, and standards. We need data sharing, access, and privacy. We need to be able to compare data over time and at multiple levels, internationally, nationally, and across sectors. And we've got to be flexible, usable, and it's got to be accessible to the public and policymakers. The last thing, just some concluding recommendations. We need funding to support all of this. We need better data infrastructure. We need to explore and better be able to make those linkages between different data sets. If people don't understand the data, it doesn't help. So data visualization is really important. And we need current estimates. We need current data to be able to make an effective case, because data that's old does not help us. So with that, I will conclude.